Hey y'all, happy Baby Friday. We are here today with the incredible Christine Hall, and we're going to be talking about Modifier 25. Hey Christine, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Betty?
Good, good. And I don't mean to throw this at you, but this thing came up and I posted it today, and I just want to throw this out there first because it's one of those things where it's just like, this is driving me crazy. Did you see, I made a post this morning, this article that somebody had posted, I read and I reposted because the Medicare Advantage plans are threatening to sue the government over the new regulations they want to put in on Medicare Advantage. Did you see this?
I saw an article by one of the law groups yesterday, actually. I didn't see your post, but I did see that one, that Medicare Advantage plans are hot right now. Very hot.
It's crazy. CMS is getting ready to put these regulations out that will allow them to do those takebacks from all the overpayments, like $650 million plus in overpayments, and they're threatening to sue. And one of the guys from the insurance plans actually said that it's unfair and they should only be able to take back going forward, and they need to give them, what are they calling it, a fee for service, like adjustment to where they're allowed to make mistakes in their favor, of course, and keep the money. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I'm like, if I get overcharged for stuff, I expect that I'm going to get that paid back to me. I don't care if they did a service. Yes, you did a service, but that's not what you were paid for. You were overpaid. And I'm like, plus when the payor finds that they've overpaid a physician or a provider, boy, they want every dime of that back. They don't care how far back it goes.
And what's the incentive to do the right thing? I talk about this all the time, as a matter of fact, because I love risk, right? And so the OIG over the last 3 years has done 12 audits on Medicare Advantage programs, looking for those risk diagnoses to see if they're supported. And what they found was resounding across the board. That providers were reporting the wrong diagnosis codes that map to an HCC, that RAF value, and increasing the acuity of that patient so that they're getting that additional. So the Medicare Advantage plan is getting that additional. And the meat for the docs are, if they have these high problematic patients, then the amount of money that comes to the Medicare Advantage increases. And then they do a bonus structure based on how healthy you kept your patient, how much it didn't cost us to take care of this patient this year. And someone has to be accountable for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I know this is like way off track.
No, but you were reading my mind.
This is freaking senseful. I mean, I was just like, this is unbelievable.
But I don't know where Medicare Advantage plans thought they were going to get away with this and not be responsible.
Yeah.
Is it because they themselves, as commercial payers, never go after someone that they've overpaid?
Exactly. I don't think so.
Exactly. So why did they feel like this wasn't going to hit them?
Exactly. I was like, oh, I hope they get every dime of that back. I hope they have to pay every single penny. And also in the article, it said that some of the Medicare Advantage plans now, because that's become more profitable than their commercial stuff, that some of them, United, and there was one in Anthem, I think was the other one, like 70 to 90% of their profits are coming from Medicare Advantage. That's sick. That's just not, that's not right.
And there was another article I read piggybacking off of that. And again, I don't know how authoritative this article was, so take it with a grain of salt, friends. That if that is the case, that those Medicare Advantage plans may be coming after the providers litigiously to recoup some of those dollars that they in turn lost. So this could turn into a big cluster, but again, I got to say, how did you not see this coming?
Yep. Yep. It's crazy. So sorry, everybody. Didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but boy, I was just like, I've got to say something about this because it's just
know. Oh.
so, all right. But to some of our other people, we got a lot of people coming in and saying hi. So I appreciate that. Go ahead and stick all that stuff in there as we're starting. Lisa Chavez Miller, and I saw Angie in here too. I spoke at their chapter last night, the Palm Springs.
Oh, how awesome.
Chapter. So hey, everybody that's on from that.
I see Natasha.
I did a presentation on the OIG, and showed a bunch of stuff on the site. So it was really good. We have Pam Vanderbilt. Hey, Pam. And one of my new friends, Ladriba, is on. She is getting into, she's a medical supervisor at a practice, and she's looking to get her CPMA and stuff. So I've been kind of chatting with her. So,
nice.
I told her all the places to watch in here with like your podcast and broadcast and Terry and everybody else. Yep. So we're happy to see everybody in today.
Betty, I had the chance to meet Natasha Timberlake in person over the holidays.
I saw the pictures.
She is brilliant, and so is her little daughter. Amazing.
Oh, so, that's who that was in the picture?
Yeah, that's her baby. So cute, right?
Very cute. All right. So, okay. Oh, and of course, Lady is on. Hey, Lady.
Oh, she's my TA for my recent billing class.
She's so excited about that.
I am too. I love having her on.
So, and I'm planning on going out to their chapter in February to do a 2023 E&M workshop. Nice. So there's information on their page and some more information that we're going to put out about that. So a lot of stuff going intermingling with the chapters. So that's all good. So, oh, and Natasha said, oops. Oh, wrong one. Natasha said, it was great meeting you in person. So
thank you.
So
likewise.
All right. So let's take a look at our subject today.
Ooh,
we're going to talk about Modifier 25. And I was just thinking the other day, and I saw, Christine, you just posted something recently, a couple days ago, right, about Modifier 25. And, when I, put it out to you to do it, my thought was just like, seriously, Modifier 25, are we still on this thing after all? Haven't we got that? And apparently, no, the answer is no, that we still apparently haven't got it down yet. So one thing, this I just wanted to put up, and I will put the link into the chat too. This is kind of what started this all. This is back in 2005. This is how old this stuff is. Back when the Honorable Daniel Levinson was the IG. So I don't know how many IGs ago that was, but so this report, here's a link to it if you want to go look at the OIG report on Modifier 25. And what it stated was that when they took a look at Modifier 25, the OIG tends to take a look at things that, cost a lot of money, that are done a lot of times together. They kind of study things to see if it was right, if it wasn't right. And so Modifier 25 finally came up. And unfortunately, they found a 35% error rate
in 2005.
In 2005.
So what that looks like now.
I'd be, that'd be scary. So
I know that the OIG recently as recent as late 2020, early 21, they targeted our derm friends.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes. Yeah. And I have actually had a few clients that have gotten ADRs, records requests for those, and we've had a bit of little brouhaha over this issue, because Modifier 25 for dermatology, when you look at different specialties, Modifier 25 for I'm sure most of our listeners and people here today understand what Modifier 25 is, but just a quick, it's when you do a minor procedure that encompasses a portion of an E&M, what is directed to that procedure, and so when you bill an E&M separately, we have to be able to say, hey, this isn't the E&M that's bundled into the minor procedure I just did. This is something different. It's over and above, or there's a different diagnosis, there's something. So certain specialties do it a lot. And dermatology is one of those specialties, because when you go in to see a dermatologist, when most people, when they get to the dermatologist, maybe they're going in for their full body skin exam, or maybe they're going because they have a lesion. But once they get in there, it's like, hey, I've also got this, I've got this. And they want the dermatologist to take care of all of it right now. They don't want to come back. So they end up doing like 7 different procedures, plus they have acne, plus they have, they just do it all right now. And dermatologists really, out of all the different specialties, at least from the ones I work with, they really bend over backwards to get that done. They really do try to take care of it all right then and there for them, because they know the patients don't want to come back.
Well, there's another thing there, Betty. Like, I see this from both sides of the table. I see it from the provider side as well, because you do have that patient that comes in and they've got all of these things. But as a patient, I know that right now we're having a difficult time finding appointments, timely appointments.
Yes.
And so, like, I see a geneticist. My appointments are booked a year apart. My primary care, 6 months.
Yeah.
My specialist, 9 months. So from a provider's perspective, they may not be able to get this patient in for another 6, 9, a year time to see the patient. And so I understand that they want to get as much as they can covered during that visit. The trick is, how do we support everything that they've done so that they can get reimbursed? What's that documentation look like? What modifiers can we use? Not that we, sometimes we shouldn't use modifiers. There's just not enough documentation there. But I kind of see it from both sides. The payer side, well, we don't want to double pay for something that is already included. But the provider side too, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of what you have to, if you see the patterns, as auditors, when we're looking at things, if I do a frequency report on a practice and I see that every time a minor procedure is done, every time there's an E&M, every time it's got a 25, and there's never a time when they don't have an E&M billed with something, that kind of raises some flags in my head, where I'm just like, yeah, maybe not, let's take a look at this a little bit more. But even if they use it a lot, depending on what they're doing, I mean, I really, and to your point with the appointment thing, yeah, I can see it. So, it all comes down to, what you're documenting.
Right. It also comes down to the max. The post that I put up on Tuesday was a Novitas. And I don't know if it was JL or JH, but it was a Novitas guidance. And in that guidance, it said that we're addressing an issue before deciding whether or not we're going to do the procedure. So something else popped up, but we've got to take care of, separately identifiable. And depending upon what we discuss and find and think, it may or may not be contingent on whether we can even move ahead with this patient. And so Novitas has their own specific kind of twist on it, if you want to call it that, where some of the other MACs might stick to the separately identifiable period and don't give us additional guidance on using it. So that it's tough as coders, billers, to know every MAC, every payer, how they want. I don't know if you saw, there was a post on LinkedIn couple of days ago, somebody, forgive me if I don't remember who it was, they posted an article from September where Anthem no longer recognizes 57 modifier. You would have to use the 25 in its place.
Oh, I had no.
I'm going to send that to you. Oh, yes. It's a one-page article from Anthem, big Anthem, little article. Like, yes. So trying to figure out payers specific,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And on the Mac end too, like Novitas, you were mentioning them on their modifier 25 FAQs, they say, don't put the modifier 25 on new patient visits.
Right. I've seen that a lot.
On some of the other Macs, they don't have that there.
Correct.
So then you have people depending on regionally, or like auditors and people like us when we're having clients that are all over the country, you know, it's just like, okay, now this Mac is this, and then, you know, trying to keep all that stuff straight. The Macs aren't even together on what they consider and how they consider modifier 25. So that's something for wherever people that are watching and listening are from and are doing things, you know, you can't just check CMS federally. Of course you want to, but I mean, really make sure you understand your Mac, or if you have are part of a practice that is, you know, in multiple states, or make sure that you're covered under, you know, wherever that Mac is, and what their guidance is that they're following for the modifier 25. Right. Because it can be a little bit of a sticky wicket, as they say, right? And commercial payors, I saw some comments already here. Sheila's saying that in New Jersey, Horizon stated they will deduct 50% reimbursement from the E&M when billed with the 25 modifier. Anthem had done that, but now, if I recall, because of threatened suits and all that, Anthem pulled back on that, didn't they?
They pulled back on the prepayment review for modifier 25.
Okay.
Yep. And because it was Cigna, it was Anthem, it was a couple of other payers that came out again last year around the same time and said, you know what, we're just going to do prepayment review for all modifier 25.
Yes.
Yeah, the medical societies lost their minds. You cannot hold our money hostage because you think we're liars. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
And
you know, they don't have the bandwidth to do that. They can't get to the stuff they have now, let alone, you know, piling on all this other stuff. It'd take you forever to get paid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you know, while we're talking about this, I am a firm believer in the word significant, because I've seen little things like, oh yeah, keep taking that med, and then they report a 99213 in addition to whatever the procedure was that they were doing. And I struggle with that, because what was the need to stop and separately evaluate something? Was it exacerbated? Is it a new problem? Is there a new change to the plan of care? What made you feel that continue your meds was significant? Right? So I struggle with the word significant a lot. And I do a lot of advice to my clients that say, you know, you're in some cases where there's not a specific MAC policy or a payer policy, you're really pushing the envelope. You're really asking for a review when you do these types of things. Because it's such a gray area there. We wish we had a little more guidance.
Well, what I try to do, because it's that, you know, everybody in coding, you know, there are certain areas that are black and white, you know, it's this, it's that, it's this bone, it's that organ, it's whatever, you know, but E&M is one of those places where we got a lot of gray and a lot of, you know, it depends on your perspective or what you can defend, what you feel you can fight for, you know, stuff like that, where they really try to push. And so one of the things I do, there is the CMS 1770, where they've got the RUC stuff where they use the physician work time data, and then they also have the worksheet. And so if you look at that worksheet, it has on there like what the pre-service stuff includes, you know, from the RUC perspective. So that's if you're looking to fight, you know, a denial or an audit situation for modifier 25. That's one of the things I've used before, where I've given them over to the attorneys and said, well, here's what the RUC committee says is included. So now when you look at it that way, the RUC committee says when they did this, and again, it is CMS-1770, and I think this year's it's now 1770F. So I just put that into LinkedIn there. So if you Google that, it will take you to what we're speaking about right now. And so one of go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a couple of things you mentioned in that statement.
Yes.
So when you're working with attorneys, so right there, we have attorneys involved at what, $500-600 an hour to defend an E&M visit. Okay, how much is that E&M visit versus the time that we're spending with the attorney, that we're paying Betty Hovey, the consultant, that we're building this case to save the few visits that we reported Modifier 25 with erroneously. Are we winning? I don't know. My pocket feels like it lost. The second question is Sheila mentioned, but shouldn't all MACs follow CCI? And they do, Sheila, but CCI only states that if there is a significantly separately identifiable evaluation and management on the same date of service, apply Modifier 25. The MACs, when they go into detail, they're just giving us their interpretation of what, for that MAC, is a significant separately identifiable. They give us additional guidance where some other MACs don't provide. Exactly. They don't provide that guidance. So it is CCI edit. It's just to what is their example, or what is that MAC's expectation of that?
Yeah, because the CCI says, again, unless it's over and above the pre and post evaluation work. So they, again, are mentioning the bits, but not that, just like reasonable and customary or medically necessary, until they come out with defining terms for those, which is why I'm really glad in the CPT book, they made all those definitions in the E&M section. I was like, well, now that's nice, so at least we've got that part down, but significant, separately identifiable is easy. It's a different diagnosis. It's something totally separate from what you're doing the procedure for, but the significant is the part that's sticky. So in that file, that has the physician work times in it, they also have one that has a worksheet, and in the worksheet, the RUC pulled out each and every piece that's involved in things. And in the pre-service work, it says it includes greeting the patient. I mean, they get down to the nitty gritty, right? So greeting the patient and then rooming the patient, and it's talking about the procedure, and it's looking at examining the site for the procedure. So everything in the RUC's kind of point of view is specifically slated onto that procedure and that procedure only. So if you use that kind of definition of pre-service, there's a whole lot of E&Ms that should be built out with Modifier 25 then, but it's not condensed down to what they think is included, unfortunately.
Well, and it also depends on the audience. I had the attention of some hospitalist, or actually hospital general surgeons that were on staff at the hospital. So I asked them the question, okay, help me understand this, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not clinical, right? Help me understand this. So you're sitting in the lounge, hanging out with your friends, and you hear the paging Dr. Bob to surgery. So you put on your Crocs, run down the hallway, wash your hands real good, bust in the door, find the first scalpel and say, okay, what are we cutting on? And they said, no, Christine, no, they don't even do that on Grey's Anatomy. Come on, no. We look at the chart ahead of time. We consult, we see the labs, we talk to the attending, we find out what it is. We make sure the patient is appropriate for this. What kind of anesthesia? Do I need to bring another specialist in? And I was like, oh, you do an evaluation for how you're going to manage the patient. And they go, yeah. And I said, well, how is that separate than what you normally would do for the surgery? And they said, oh. So, yeah.
Yep. So I try to tell physicians, or when I'm looking at records, I'm like, okay, so everything that's related to the procedure, explaining it to the patient, yes, you have to look at it before you do it. So no, that's part of doing it. and talking to the patient about it, the treatment after, what's going to go on after, how they have to take care of it after, all of that stuff is part of that procedure, and then if it's over and above that, there are other things left, then you have to see if what's left justifies an E&M, because go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and thanks to those new guidelines, they do talk about those conditions that are separately, they have a service that is separately reportable, that we don't keep those separately reportable services as part of our medical decision making. So once we've carved all of that out for that procedure, that E&M for the procedure, the examination for the procedure, the review of notes for the procedure, we've carved all of that out of the E&M. What do you have left? Patient presented to the office. Not an E&M, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really where you have to start looking at it. It's not, when you look at, of course, the easy ones where you can say, no, where I see a lot is when it says patient presents for ILK, they're presenting for the injection, they're presenting for a cryotherapy. And I'm just like, okay, well, right there, you're saying that's why they're there. That's why they're there. You're not deciding anything. You already have, I said, you've got equipment out, right? Well, yeah. I'm like, okay, so you're ready to do it. So you tell me where a decision is coming in there. The decision was made at the last visit, for them to come back and have this done. So you can't, you can't be trying to get the E&M separately for that. I'm all for physicians getting paid. I'm all for them getting paid for everything they do. They have to, or we can't keep seeing patients and giving services. But you can't go crazy with it in the other way and just think that everything, or try to, where I see, unfortunately, where we get on thin ice is when they'll have the diagnosis that they're doing the minor procedure for, and then all of a sudden I see signs and symptoms that they want to use to bill the E&M for. Well, no, here's the procedure for this diagnosis, but yeah, I also looked at because they were itching or because they had this. I was like, that's a sign and symptom of the procedure, right? Well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, no, it kind of goes along with the procedure, with the diagnosis that's under the procedure. So they're trying to get a little crafty, a little creative with how they're splitting things out.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate, because those are the ones that, can get in trouble, or the ones that when they do get in trouble, they make everybody else look bad. And then that's why we have these issues now with this modifier. I know what, I think it was Anthem I just saw too. They said that for new patients, they were not going to do the reduction. They wouldn't take the 50%. That's what it was that I read.
And I can understand that if you have a new patient that presents with problems, but you said it in your previous comment. A lot of times before we apply modifier 25, we do need to look at that previous visit and see if they said, if it comes back this, we're going to do this. Or if it continues, we're going to do this. Or if it becomes problematic, we're going to do this. And so that determination was previously made. We know that that's what the right course of treatment for that patient was. And so sometimes that documentation kind of fights against us when trying to defend that modifier 25.
Yeah, and it's hard too sometimes from the auditor or coder's perspective, because we're looking at sometimes only the service on that day, and that's all that you have. And it's supposed to stand on its own. So sometimes I've had situations before when I looked at one record, I'm like, okay, taking this record at its face value, I can see. And then in conversation with the physician or APP, I'm like, you know what, I can you send me the note for the last visit? So now I've gotten in the habit now of saying, well, yes, I'm looking at this one, but I also want to look at the couple before, and you see where it's clear from the last visits, and I said, I wouldn't be requesting anything that a payor wouldn't request also.
Exactly.
So it's not like I figured something out. and I don't think they're all doing it maliciously or,
No, no.
intentionally, but I'm like, see, this is what you have to start looking at. And then, like you said, with the thing about running in there with their scalpel, then you get that,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And
it can be kind of hard.
they don't teach the business of medicine in med school. And nor do
Mhm.
I want my physician to be dedicated to his craft. I don't want him thinking about how my, what this is more money or that makes me more money. And I don't want to go to a provider like that. And most providers also, let's be honest, they don't sit and read those contracts cover to cover. They have office managers or they have healthcare attorneys that do that on their behalf. And so they're maybe not familiar with all of the regulations that come with billing and responsibilities that come with billing, because we want them to be doctors. I
Yep.
want you to be focused on finding the answer, not focused on, well, I have to click this box or that box to make some. I get
Yeah.
that. But providers have to trust us. They have
Yep.
to trust that we are looking at their best interest from that business perspective, that we are looking at those little things that the payers require to keep the money. It's a,
Yeah. I kind of think of that when you're saying that, made me think of like the president and his cabinet. You
yes,
know, you're not supposed to know everything, but you're supposed to have good people around you that understand and can advise you. You just have to take the advice, which is that's the thing. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, please listen to me.
yeah,
This is not going to fly. So yeah, that's kind of, so yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. I thought Pam made a good. She says, why do payers need to change the rules so significantly from AMA CPT? Significantly. so,
that's
so
a
now,
great
yes,
one.
we don't want to use
Oh,
the word significantly. We have to be careful when we say that now. Um,
mhm.
and then here we have Natasha. That's why it's a good idea for billers, coders, and accounts receivable departments to work together due to all the different payors and consistent changes. So yes, it's critically important in any kind of practice or facility that those departments are talking to each other, understanding what each other's doing. That's one of the things I found, and I'm sure Christine, you found the same things, that sometimes when I go into practices, especially larger ones, they really are like they're their own universe and they don't
Yeah,
talk to the
right.
other, and they
Yeah,
don't know, well, we don't do that, and that's them over there. And and then issues come up, and then it's like, well, somebody should have caught this, but we get that, well, it got off my desk, it was off my
right.
desk, so I'm good. And they don't follow that through to make sure that everything's playing well together here.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I often recommend that, if the department heads meet with their staff, the department heads meet with other department heads to talk about the issues that their staff, when you've gotten that big, I get it, but there has to be communication across the departments of what one is seeing or the other is seeing. And then maybe take that information and provide education specific to those problems that for everyone, right? And
This is mind blowing, Christine. Who would have ever thought that education would be helpful? I mean, come on. I mean, you just boom, you just know it all. That's just how it goes. That's what happens everywhere, right?
yeah,
So
and
yeah, it's amazing sometimes where I think the short sightedness, oh, it costs too much to call somebody in. Well, if you think about it, it really costs too much not to.
right.
The preventive issue of not having to hire attorneys and other consultants and all this other, do it right the first time. And to do it right the first time, you got to know what you're doing. So
Yep.
education, and that I was really
And good
saddened.
education, which falls back on compliance. If
Yes.
you are monitoring yourselves or having someone come in annually to give you that bird's eye view of how the practice is really doing, then we're making progress. Lots of times, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, we'll go in and we actually find opportunities that offset the cost of even bringing in a consultant.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, hey, you haven't been billing for these services, and what a nice documentation this is. Why don't you bill for it? Everybody else does. We didn't know. What else don't you know? Right. And
exactly.
So I think we've that the thing I preach the most about is compliance, and there's different definitions of it. So let me just break it down very simply. Compliance as it applies to your billing and coding. Are you doing the right thing? How do you know? Show it to me. Okay. Then we have somewhere to go from there. We have education that can bring those opportunities to light. How do we capture them? Mitigate any risks before we get that ADR, or I have one that called me recently with a TPE, and how do we mitigate that from happening? Because like it or not, even if you say I passed with flying colors, there was a cost. You didn't pass with flying colors. You're actually out of pocket, whatever it cost staff, counsel to come to that conclusion.
And your time to go around and sit through the education, and every time they decided you're still not up to snuff yet, which is, I've been in on a couple of those with some of my clients where they're like, can you just be on the call with me? I'm like, yeah, okay. Snooze fest when they're going through those things too.
Like, and they're going through the LCD just like you went through the LCD with them.
It's like they're just ready to get back to you, just like I did, and but they're so yes, that takes you down a different road. But they could just cut off so much strife. And practicing today is very stressful, having a practice and all the overhead and everything else that's going on. So being able to cut that part of it out to where you're not worrying about those things because you've been educated and understand how to use Modifier 25 properly as a good example, since we're talking about it today, that's invaluable. And makes the practice run efficiently, more smoothly, more stress-free. It just makes it better all the way around. So we got some.
I love Pam's statement.
Which
her most recent statement. The most expensive mistake in a medical practice is putting your head in the sand. This is how we've always done it.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, let me give you just a little tip. Healthcare changes on a daily basis. And so if you're doing it the way that you've always done it, there is a really big chance you're doing something wrong.
Yep. Yeah. I or the offices where they have, books from like 6 years ago that they're still using, and I don't call them cheat. I don't like the term cheat sheet.
No, nor do I. I imagine sitting in front of a judge and him asking me, what is this? And looking at it and going, I don't want that. So they're resources, they're references,
I call them job aids.
Pardon?
I call them job aids.
Oh, yes. I like that.
So,
very much so.
Yeah. So, and I'll see them and like the things all wrinkled up and, the pages are creasing and stuff because, they're like 20 years old. They don't even know who made it anymore. It got like passed down from employer, and there's like tape from where they've had it taped everywhere, and it's all wrapped around, and you're looking at this stuff going, half of this stuff isn't even valid anymore.
Where did this come from? I don't know.
That
we should all make it our own personal oath to never say, I don't know, to research where this came from. Where did this knowledge come from? Is it authoritative knowledge? And as much as I'd like to think that Betty's word or my word or Terry's word, if you ask us, we can tell you what was the authoritative source. And that's what you want to know. And when I give out these resource tools, I make sure the link is on the bottom. Where can you go back to? And I say, stop printing them out and putting them in a book. They change too much. Make a link on your desktop. And that way, when you click on it, it's the most up-to-date version of whatever it is, whatever resource you're using. NCCI manuals, the Medicare manuals, the payer policies. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yes, that's and when I do presentations, I know you do too. My last slide is always full of links with the resources in it. I tell people, I don't care who tells it to you, ask them why. You're telling me that I need to do this. Why? Show me. I need to see it. Now, there always isn't something to show you because there isn't a rule for everything. But if you go to a trusted consultant that has experience, like Christine or myself or Terry Fletcher or anybody like that, when we tell you something, if we don't have a source that says it, what we're telling you will explain, well, we're basing this on the fact that they've had these 3 other things that are kind of like it, or deal with the same condition, or deal with the same type of thing, and this is what they're doing for those. So while there isn't something specific to this is what we're basing this off of.
Or Betty's hot sheets. I call them Betty's hot sheets now. I don't know what you call them, but Betty goes through the Department of Justice and pulls out the news press releases. So I personally, and in my office, we call them Betty's hot sheets. So I saw one that you did the other day for ophthalmology, and then another friend of ours was another hot sheet that we chatted about a little bit. That might be the answer. There's not a specific rule, but these folks right here just paid back $1.2 million for practicing this way. So let's not do that. Let's do the opposite of what they had to pay back.
Yep. Sometimes scare tactics. I've before too gone on to the OIG site and got the corporate integrity agreements. Where I've gone through those and I've printed those out for something that says, see, now look what they're doing. And again, for those of y'all listening, for CIA's corporate integrity agreements, that's when you've done something so naughty that now the government is like, no, we're going to watch you now for like 3 to 5+ years. And you have to get an independent review organization. You have to get audited. You have to get a compliance officer. You have to do this, that, and you have to meet all these deadlines. And they sit in your back pocket, So that's always a good thing to show a practice if they're being hesitant about following what really is right, and they're trying to be too gamesy with things. I do that. I also will show them sometimes, because we get the things where people will say, oh, I'm too small, I'm not really big, they only go after the big guys, they're not going to come after me. A lot of me's add up to big guys, so they know the little guys sometimes aren't going to have that wherewithal to fight back and to hire the attorneys and to hire it's like, okay, I'll just settle with you and pay, so they'll also go for easy pickings, which sometimes the smaller practices are. But also they have the settlements where they'll list out. So I'll do those too, where I'll say, see, this is one solo practitioner here that paid back $500,000. So we're not talking about multi-millions dollars where it's a big entity. Do you have $500,000 where you could just write a check tomorrow and say, okay, well, I'll give this back then?
No, but how is that going to affect my Christmas bonus as staff? If my doc has to write back $500,000. Let's say that's what we've got in the bank. How's that going to affect my bonus? So, there's all of those kind of bullets you can put in your arsenal, so to speak, for people that are listening and watching. If you're trying to show people different things, that it doesn't matter how big or how small you are, wrong is wrong. Just don't do it. Don't do it. And, the red flags are the red flags for a reason. You are billing every visit with a modifier 25. Do you not think that any of the data mining, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or the commercial payers, their data mining isn't going to pick up that every claim has a 25 on it? Same diagnosis or different diagnosis, but the diagnosis is dry skin. Is that significant? And what did you do for it? 99214 for dry skin? Well, I mean, anyone who's living up north in the wintertime, that's just about every person right now that they're dealing with dry skin. So they see that. They're able to do that data mine. And even better, they have programmed their system to look for those types of outliers. And it's sometimes it's just a matter of time until you get the letter.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, because I said, somebody once said, I had a physician that said to me, well, don't they see that this is blah, 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 when we were talking about, because I was showing him on his 1500, his claim forms, how electronically, they were all pointing to the first diagnosis. I said, well, okay, there's an issue right there. You're saying I did a significantly separately identifiable visit and I did this procedure, but they're both for the same thing. So now, while that can happen, if that's the pattern, it's going to get questioned.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, on the claim form, there's also the other diagnoses that you actually did see them for the E&M. I'm like, why isn't it going to that? And the physician was like, well, why does it matter? Don't they see that? And I said, well, did you see it when you sent the claim out?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, no. I said, why not? And he said, well, I don't see those things. They go electronically. I said, exactly. I said, so do you think that on the other end, they print every one of those out and look at them? I'm like, it's going from computer to computer. Nobody sees anything anymore. So if you don't have it set up to point to the right things, you could be getting denials. You could get audited or get ADRs for things like that when you're actually valid to have them. So you got to check all that kind of periphery stuff too, because that can factor into it, where you're doing the right things, you're doing separate diagnoses, but it's not what it looks like.
And the other thing that we hear a lot is, oh, this is standard in medicine. Any doctor who looks at this would know. And I remind them that, yes, Dr. Neurosurgeon, I get that. However, there is a shortage of neurosurgeons who go to college and get, $300,000 to $500,000 in debt, who want to have a job processing claims. There's a shortage, my friend. So in lieu of those people, we have coders and billers and auditors and administrative personnel who process the claims for payment. So unfortunately, your neurosurgeon colleague is not going to be reviewing the 1500 that comes across, or the 837 that comes across that needs to be processed. And sometimes just reminding them that once the patient leaves and we start to create that claim, it goes into another different world. Yeah. It's no longer peer-to-peer. We're going into an administrative business side that many providers don't understand.
By the time it gets back to peer-to-peer, that means you're in hot water. Absolutely. Because that's after it's been denied and you've done a redetermination and you've done it, so now it's working up the ranks in there. So once it gets peer-to-peer again, you're in trouble. Right?
Absolutely. And again, then we go back to that, well, I beat it, but did you really? Let's talk about staff time. Let's talk about documentation. Let's talk about review. Let's talk about consultant. Oh, you're $5,000 in for that one claim for an E&M visit. Yeah, you won.
Yeah. And there comes that time too where it's about the principle. Well, yes, it is, but it's also about the other kind of principle, like this kind of principle. You have to pick your battles. That's where I go with that one. Then with them,
Absolutely. And
so now let's see. We have a lot of statements and stuff coming in, and I will try to pick out. I saw a couple questions that or some statements people were making about Modifier 25. We kind of veered off into like a couple other different things, which is okay, but I want to make sure that if somebody has some 25 stuff, we're getting to it. But I know it's my fault because I started it off with that Medicare Advantage thing, but I was just so mad. So
I know. Believe me, I totally appreciate that.
Okay. Well, Sheila, again, she's like, she's the one that mentioned the NCCI before. She said, Betty mentioned that there are MACs that state new patient visits don't need Modifier 25, but the NCCI may state they do. Not anymore. If you look in the current NCCI under the current revision that it's under, if you input a new patient E&M visit and a minor procedure, it will not show that there is an edit any longer. So, they're the only ones I see with the new patient visit and the edit still are things like the injections, the 96372 or something, like that. But none of the minor actual procedures, they no longer bundle the E&M in there. So just so you understand, Sheila and everybody else, that new patient visits under the NCCI don't bundle into the minor procedures. So it's the established patient visits that will show that they're being bundled. We have Haley. Hey, Haley, I'm speaking at her chapter, I think in April. I'm doing Mo's again. I love Mo's. And so she talked to her chapter and they said they would like it. It's going to have a video and stuff to show. It's really super cool. Yeah. It's a cool presentation. Yeah. So Haley says, I think there are times it could be significant, but the documentation isn't clear enough to justify. Back to if it isn't documented, it didn't happen, which is exactly the issue. I know many physicians and APPs that I've looked at their stuff, and if you know them or know the specialty, you're like, I know you did XYZ, or I know you, and they'll say, yes, I did. And I'll say, okay, well, here's the problem. This doesn't say that. So, it's not that you didn't do it. And that's why I don't tell them anymore if it's not documented, it's not, you didn't do it, because they would get mad. They were like, so then I would say, if it's not documented, I can't support it. I can't support the reporting of it. I'm not saying you didn't do it. I know you, I know how you practice. I've been here for how many years. I know you did it. It's saying you did it payor is not going to give you any kind of, appreciation to that. They're just going to say, it's not there. I want my money back. That's it.
There's a couple of things on that, Betty, that I get a lot. Well, where do I click in my EMR? And I say, this is not a click moment. Or, okay, then we'll just build a macro and we'll put it on every patient. And that's not the answer either, because documentation must be patient specific in order to support. So you have to be very careful with the EMRs. Remember that they're not the do all save all. And I'm not anti EMR. I'm just saying that remember that these are options for you and that you must be patient specific when you're looking at this documentation. Better yet, think about you're sitting on a bench with a panel of jurors in a courtroom with a judge, and you have to defend that note. Are you really going to say it's my EMR, or we just use that macro on everyone so we can get paid? Or no, you're never going to say those things. So don't do those things. Right?
Yeah. Or worse, they print out 10 of those office visit notes and they all look the same, except the patient name is different or the date of service is different.
And I'm then
you're like, okay, how is this patient specific when every single one says the exact same thing? And you're not showing any differentiation. And so I with the EMRs, I usually tell my clients and my physicians and docs and people when I work with them is it's a tool just like everything else. You have to use the tool. Don't let it use you, and make sure that there's free text available in every section and that you input the stuff that's specific for today's visit. Back to you, Christine, with your today, right? So I mean, what is it today that's different from the last visit, that's different from the last patient?
Right. Because basically, think about it. We're either trying to get the patient stable or cured, or we're finding alternatives. We try this medication. Are they stable? And if they're stable, then that's great. Then maybe they don't, we're moving in that proper direction. But patients that you copy paste every visit where they never get better, I've seen that. Or when I've also seen providers say, well, this condition always presents itself this way. I'll be the first one to tell you, I've not presented normal with anything to my doctor's office. Everything is unique when it comes to me. So I have a hard time believing that everyone's disease process is exactly the same, that comorbidities don't factor into it, that everyone is the same. So come on, providers, again, like Betty said, it's a tool. And I love that we have a tool to make things faster, but We do need to make those notes patient specific with the goal of them getting better or them being stable.
Yep.
That should be the goal.
Or under the new A&M guidelines, in that last column for risk now, I think sometimes people don't catch the difference in that it's the risk of the treatment, and then looking at then the first category, which are their problems addressed when they have is it exacerbated? So it's not at goal, as we, are saying. So then what is the goal? What's the goal? I love it when it's not a goal, it's not a goal, it's not a goal. Okay, well, where's the goal? What is it supposed to be? When is it at goal?
What are we doing about
when
it?
When they're 80% clear, when they're this percent clear, and they don't explain that part of it either. So you just see it time and time. So then you start thinking, okay, is this another one of those pull forwards, or, what's going on with it? So I tell my clients also, when I talk about E&M and make sure with the docs and the APPs when they're doing this, is that if you think it, ink it. When you're doing your E&M. So if something's playing in your mind about a differential, about whatever, especially when you're trying to support a separately identifiable E&M service, all of those things need to get in the record. We can't rely on the history anymore and the exam anymore to get us up to the level that we think we need. And then we can say, oh, well, we can just kind of float away on the MDM because I met it here. That's not there anymore. And it's based all on the medical decision making now. And I've seen, like, for a while before this change, where the MDM portions, the assessment and plans, the impression and plans, they were getting smaller and smaller and smaller because they just jammed everything in the history and exam. Well, you have to explain all those things now in the MDM. What are you doing? What are you treating? Why are you doing it? What else could be going on? What comorbids do they have that are affecting it? How is it affecting it? Say it's affecting it.
Let's go back to the beginning. Why are you here today? Let me hear it from your perspective. Let me put my hands on you and put my medical degree to work. And then let me think about this from what you told me, what I found out as a fact, and any other facts that I had to look at or interfere or interact with to come up with what's wrong with you and what we're going to do about it. That's what they learned in med school. Go back to that, docs. And you're going to get paid according to what that is.
Yep.
Don't try to tilt those scales. Just tell me what you're doing. And some patients, they're at goal. Some of the patients are stable. And that's great. Thanks for coming. I'll see you in 6 months. And some patients require that extra time, and you will get reimbursed for that extra time. But you got to tell us what's going on.
Yep. And then we have Catherine here kind of fitting into that, what do I have to do to get it paid kind of thing. And that's kind of what we're talking about. I always tell physicians and the providers, I'm sure you do too, Christine, is you just have to do what you did and it will get paid appropriately. What do I document for this to fit this? No, then you're looking at the wrong person, because I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to tell you, document what you did, and then it will be coded appropriately, reported appropriately, and paid at that level that you deserve. Because you shouldn't have, I shouldn't say that, normally on normal scale, you're not going to have 5s all day or 4s all day.
Right.
You're going to have a variation in your patients. Some are a little bit, easy. Some are tougher. It should be the up and down.
If my doc reports a 1-4 on every one of my visits, it's time to go see a new doc.
Yep. Good. Okay. I think, oh boy, I'm sorry. It's 3:00. Look at that.
It went by so quickly.
All right, y'all. Just do, what is appropriate. Take a look at the documentation, make sure the physicians are documenting everything they're doing appropriately and fully so that they can get appropriate reimbursement when it is valid. Christine, do you have any last thoughts there on this Modifier 25 or any of the other various issues we ended up talking about?
I'm going to tell my friends, look, it's tough sometimes working with the providers, and that's what Betty and I are here for. That's what consultants are here for. And so go back to your practices, talk to your administrators, see who is responsible for compliance, see if they need some help getting started, right? We don't want to move in and become part of your practice. That's not going to happen. But we can help you get started in the right direction. And then you'll have that information on when is it good to report Modifier 25. What might we be doing that's raising red flags and we don't even know? So that's my word to you is, reach out. We're all here networking with each other. There's so many wonderful consultants out there. Bring someone in so that you can truly get that understanding of what's going on. And then how do we continue to make it compliant, to make it the right thing? What are the resources out there? So.
Yeah. And, education, right? Yeah, that's what it goes back to. Make sure you're educating your staff, educating your physicians, educating everybody. I saw a thing when I was going through something once that I thought was really neat. It is knowledge shared is knowledge squared, right?
I love that.
So yeah, that's what you need to do to pass it on and to keep passing it on to make sure you're getting paid right. So I want to thank you so much, Christine. This was so much fun. I always love having you on and talking.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for hanging out with us for this past hour. If you want to get a hold of Christine, she is at C Hall at Stirling Global Solutions.com. That's a mouthful.
I know. I tried to find something smaller, but it just wouldn't fit.
That's why I did the CHCS. I'm like, no, it's just too, because mine is even longer. And then the website is at stirlingglobal.solutions.com. And you can also, on the opposite Thursdays of me, Christine has her broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern, Coding with Christine. And she had last week, Kimberly Jolivet Williams on. So they were talking about ICD-10. So you can check Christine Hall out there. Get with her on LinkedIn and stuff so you can see when she's doing her things and watch her too. She has great program that she does with her broadcasts.
Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you, my friend. And thanks, y'all, for hanging out, as I said. And I will see you next time when we look at what is happening in healthcare. So have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, a good weekend, everything else.